Wow. So I just filmed this video prior, and it blinked off. And it didn't even show up on my page. So this is rough. But hello, my Bible study class. So glad to here. I can't wait to see you guys next week. So I'm just gonna jump right to it. I'll try not to hold people on. So we're gonna jump right to it. Of course, we're in Matthew 24. We stopped at verse 14. And I'm just going to give a little recap. Of course, Jesus was on the Mount of Olives, and he was explaining to the disciples about um, preparing them for the end times, which is the tribulation period. Matthew 24 is Jesus telling them about the tribulation period. This has nothing to do with the last days. It's the end times. The end times is the tribulation period. Reason why is because there's only 7 years left. Once the tribulation period here, we have 7 years. That's end time moment. There's going to be a lot of catastrophe, a lot of events that's going to happen in this time. But all the events that we're seeing now is not the end times. It's not the tribulation period. Even though some people say that we in tribulation period, some people say we in last days. Like I said before, we have been in the last days since the day Jesus came onto this earth to do his ministry. The last days started then. Yes, we always been in the last day, but as far as the end times, the tribulation period, if anybody tell you that we're in the end times of the tribulation period, we're not, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. Now, one thing about Jesus, he said that in verse 14 that the gospel of the kingdom shall be preached into the whole world before witness until before, and then the end shall come. He said once the word has been preached around to everybody, then the end shall come. The reason why is because he's trying to give the entire world a chance to hear about him, the truth about him, not false stuff. Because like he said, false prophets will rise. So you have to get your truth from him. And that's why you have to build a relationship with him. So he's telling you that when the gospel and the truth is preached to him and preached all the world, then he's going to return. And the reason why is because he's trying to give everybody a chance to know him. He also said in I think it's in Paul. He also said, I think Paul said this in Thessalonians, Paul or Peter, one of them, one of those P's said this. Also that the Lord will not return until there be a falling away first, which is basically parallel to what Jesus said about the gospel being preached around the world before he comes, because the gospel is going to be preached around the world. It's going to be people that's already following Christ, but false prophets are going to rise, so it's going to cause a lot of people to fall away because they're going to be speaking what their part of the religion, and they're going to be convincing people and deceiving them enough where they're going to fall away from following Christ and start following that religion that the false prophets are come. Now, that's why he said, take it that no man deceive you, and be careful, false prophets going to rise. So you have to be careful and be mindful and keep your mind on him and always seek God so you won't be deceived. So, on that note being said, we're going to start with verse 15, Matthew 24, verse 15, and we're going to stop at 28. I'm going to read the whole chapter, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to break it down. All right, let's start with 15. He said, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house, neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Then if any man shall say unto you, lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of Son of Man be. For whatsoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Now, with that being said, let's start with verse 15. The first thing that Jesus said was, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, said in the holy place, let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Of course, we know the abomination of desolation is the Antichrist, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, because Gabriel, the archangel of God, gave Daniel this vision to what they expect in the end time. So let's go to Daniel so you can get a better understanding when he said that when you see the abomination of desolation. Now let's start with we're gonna do Daniel chapter 9. We're gonna do verse 24 through 27. Now to give you guys a better understanding, because this has a lot, I was going to just do verse 27, but because 24 through 27 basically is parallel to what Jesus is saying in Matthew 4, in Matthew 24, I figure I just read 24 through 27. Now, let's start with Daniel 9, verse 24. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression and to make and an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. So all of these things are supposed to go down in this 70-week time. And we all know 70 weeks was set is 70 and 7. That means it's 70 weeks of 7 years. So when you do 7 years, that's 1 week. See, if you go into the scriptures, I think it's in Psalms, it says 1 week. I've told you guys, it's 1 week equals a year. It's different codes for the time frame because, understand God is in a different dimension where time is a little different. So 1 week is 7 years, which means it's a year of, it also means that 1 year also means it could be 1 day. It's just depends on the Lord, the code. It's different codes. Like Jonah had a code. Where 1 week equals 1 year or 1 day. No, one. I'm sorry, Lord, forgive me. 1 day equals 1 year. So when Jesus said, "So Lord, forgive me, do not charge it to my heart," I was off. 1 day equals 1 year with God. So when we say 70 years, he was saying one is 7 years per week. So 70 weeks equals 7 years. So you have 7 years, that's 1 week. The next 7 years is 2 weeks. So God was saying in 70 weeks are determined, that was giving us that's God's grace period for us to be saved. That means we had 70 weeks. And that time frame, and also, I mean, even God even paused and delayed it just for us. That's a grace period. And so that's what he was saying here, all the way up until now, to when Jesus come back and take over for 1,000 years, because it says that we have 7 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins. Make an end of sins. I mean, take down the Antichrist. And to make reconciliation for iniquity. That means you can reconcile with God, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, which will be us once the Antichrist is destroyed, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint Jesus to reign as king. So that all this is supposed to happen in the 7-week time frame. That's why I said time is running out. We are pushing towards the end of the 7 weeks. Because you got to understand that God is about time and numbers. If you go back and look at different scriptures when God did this, he's always been precise with his numbers. So then he said in verse 25, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks. And 62 weeks, and the street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times. He's still talking about when Jesus takes over. He's talking about from the restoring of Jerusalem. That is what he's talking about. So he was like, and after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off. And this is when Jesus was telling them that the temple was going to be destroyed in Matthew 24, when he said it won't be a stone left. That was like I think the second verse when you first. So the devil definitely don't want you guys getting in on this. Sorry about that. So he definitely don't want y'all getting this word, because he keep cutting out the video. For some reason, my videos just keep getting cut off. So you may see a jump, but it's okay. It's gonna be the word. I did reset my phone to make sure to see if it won't happen again. But we had stopped at Daniel 9. Well, let me go into 9:27. Now he said, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of this week shall he cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Now, one thing about what he's talking about right here is the Antichrist. This is what Jesus was talking about, saying when you see the abomination of desolation, which is spoken of in Daniel the prophet, then you should flee. He's saying once the Antichrist get in office, you need to flee. Because that is when great tribulation starts. And that's when he says this. He said, for then shall be great tribulation. This is Matthew 14, verse 21. He said, for then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. So he's talking about it ain't gonna be no Noah's Ark or no Sodom and Gomorrah. He said you gonna wish it was Sodom and Gomorrah. It's gonna be worse than it's ever been. Tribulation period is the worst because it's the end. It's gonna be the worst experience anybody has ever had to deal with. But we just got to hold on and make it to the end. Now, when he says the abomination of desolation, and when Jesus said that when he comes in power, you need to run because great tribulation is starting. See, the tribulation period is 7 weeks, and that's what Daniel said. He said, and it shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Now, you have to pay attention. And a lot of times, I don't really watch the news. I don't really keep up with things, but we will know that you will know it's the Antichrist. When you watch the news or you see something and you see somebody do a 7-year agreement to bring peace into this world. We're not talking about that peace treaty that Trump did. You know what I mean? We're not talking about because it's going to be mentioned 7. You're going to hear the word 7 years. All right, we're going to make this for 7 years. You know, that you're going to hear 7 in that when he signs over the covenant. Now, I don't know who he's going to do it. He may do it with the Pope. He may even do it with Trump. We don't know. He could do it with Biden or whatever. But when you see them sign a peace treaty and they said it's for 7 years, then you have watched the Antichrist sign it. Because the Bible, Daniel said that he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. That means he said with many. So it's not with everybody. It's going to be with different countries. He's going to sign a peace treaty with different countries for 1 week, 7 years. And what did he say? What did Daniel say? And in the midst of the week, 7 weeks, keep in mind, 7 weeks is 7 years. So he said, and in the midst of it, which is halfway through, because if you go in Revelation 13, you're going to see where it says that the Antichrist is going to be in power for 3.5 years, the final 3.5 years of the tribulation period. So that's why he says, that's why Daniel says, and in the midst of the week shall he cause the sacrifice of the oblation to cease. And then you're going to see the overspreading of abominations, he should make it desolate. That means you're gonna when the Antichrist come in and sign this peace treaty, people are gonna think they're gonna be experiencing peace. Everything gonna be all peachy key for 3.5 years. But then Antichrist is going to break that covenant. Because remember, Daniel said he's supposed to sign a 7-year covenant, a 7-year agreement, but in the midst of it, he's gonna break the covenant. And then it's gonna be hell on earth. Then Allah so well, that's why Jesus said, when you see him stand in the holy place, that means when the Antichrist get in power, you better run. And he's telling us to run. He's telling us to hide. Because the things you're going to have to endure. So I wouldn't be mad at people to try to start getting buying land in places where you can practice on living off grid. Because you're gonna really need to. I mean, the thing about it, I used to really believe in the rapture. I used to read the scriptures, and I used to really believe there's gonna be such a rapture. When I really started taking in Matthew 24 and really started studying it, I don't believe in a pre-tribulation rapture now. I really don't. I don't believe there is a rapture because there's so many things what Jesus said. When he said flee, when they come, flee. And one of the things that Jesus said, woe unto them that are with child. So if you got little babies, if you just had a baby, we're not that like to make noise, or you got to be trying to figure out how you gonna pet, because you can't pet. He said don't take nothing with you. When he comes, you just need to flee. You ain't gonna have time to grab nothing, because he gonna be part of rolling up on everybody, sitting in the military, busting up in your house, trying to force you to take the mark of the beast. So my suggestion, like me and my husband always decided, when we see him sign that covenant, it's time to bolt. Ain't nobody trying to wait until he get in office. Because Jesus said himself, you're going to have to run. I want to be already off the grid. You know what I mean? Instead of waiting. So once I see that treaty sign, we got to make some moves. You know what I mean? Simple as that. We got to make some moves. Okay, so of course, he said, let him which is on the housetop don't come down. So he's telling people, you ain't got time to be packing. You ain't got time to be trying to figure out where you're going to go. That's why it's time to prep for it now. That's why we need to prep for it now. Start getting things or trying to, because I mean, they got this thing. This lady sent me some stuff about about how you could buy land in the mountains for $300. People, it's ways of learning how to live off grid. I got this man I start following, this lady introduced me to. Well, we could discuss this when we in person, where he teaches you how to live off grid. You're going to eventually have to learn how to live off grid. You don't want to get caught into this mess. So he was saying if you have a baby, it's going to be rough. Pray your flight don't be in the winter because you ain't trying to be moving when it's cold. Because sometimes you may have to hide somewhere outside, maybe in the woods somewhere. You don't want to be moving when it's cold. And then you got a baby crying like, oh, Lord, how we going to do it? So it's best to be prepared. That's why Jesus said be watchful. So if you be watchful, we keep an eye on and see him sign that treaty, then we got at least 3.5 years to try to get where we need to go and get stashed and maybe get a spot where we can help other people or something like that. Don't wait until he get in office. You know what I mean? So that's why we have to be watchful. Now, he said when this happened, that means it's great tribulation. That means because that is the indication that we're in great tribulation when the Antichrist gets in power. We're in tribulation when the Antichrist signs the treaty. But once when he gets in office, then we're in great tribulation. So that's only 3.5 years left before Jesus returns. So we can hold out. We can just hold out. And so one thing Jesus said. This video. Okay, so for one thing, Jesus said that when the Antichrist comes, that means we're in great tribulation, and it's gonna be worse than we've ever seen before. So the other thing he said was verse 22. He said, "And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved." And what he meant by that is that if it wasn't for him returning to take down the Antichrist, everybody would die. But the Bible says that we not all will die, but we all will be changed over. That means there's going to be some people left alive when Jesus returned. You know what I mean? So he said if it wasn't for him coming back to take down the Antichrist will kill everybody. He said there would be no flesh to be saved. But for the elect's sake, which is us, those days shall be short. And he's cutting the days short. So we want to be enduring this knucklehead that's coming the entire time. That's why some people will die and some people won't. And he said, if any man shall say unto you, lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. One thing, the reason why Jesus says this, because there's going to be a lot of false prophets. Of course, the Antichrist is a false Christ. So he's going to tell everybody he's the Messiah. And he's going to do wondrous things. He's going to do powerful things that we expect Jesus to do, but it's not going to be of his own power. It's probably going to be, of course, some this high-tech computer stuff is going to make it look like he's doing his thing, and he's not, because he's a false Christ. He's a counterfeit. So he ain't got the power that Jesus possessed. So, of course, his stuff is going to be counterfeit. He probably going to have some little computer, have everybody think he's doing some old crazy stuff. He's going to do a fake resurrection. That's what's really going to trick people, because he's going to have some type of injury that happens to him that's going to kill him, and he's going to do a fake resurrection, raise up, so everybody's going to be like, oh, so that is Jesus, and it's going to be a lie. That's why Jesus said, be watchful, pay attention to the signs, because it's not going to be me. One thing he said is that and this is verse 27. He said, for as the lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. That means that a lot of times when it's lightning, everybody see that lightning. You become, girl, you see that lightning out there? Oh, you see that? That means everybody is going to see him. You're going to know that it's him. Just like when you see lightning, you know that it's lightning. You're gonna know it's him. So it ain't gonna be no little thing where, I saw Jesus up at the bar the other day. It ain't gonna be that. So if anybody tell you I seen Jesus came into our church, they are lying. Because when Jesus come, every individual, even people who don't serve God, is going to know it's him. He said that. So if anybody tell you otherwise, they are lying and don't believe it. See, he's prepping us for these false prophets. If you don't read this stuff, then you're not going to be prepared. You're going to fall for it. That's why you got to stay in the word. Because you're going to fall for it if you don't. So he's telling you, don't let nobody deceive you. If you see stuff come out of the sky, that's throwing fire out the sky, doing wondrous things, it is not him. You will know when it's him. The Bible says he's gonna come down on a cloud. You know what I mean? It's gonna be different. Jesus gonna be different from the Antichrist. And like I said, you ain't gonna have to guess that it's him. He said that in the word. You're not gonna have to guess that it's him. You're not gonna have to figure out, is that Jesus? Oh no. You're gonna know for a fact it's him. That's what he said. That's what he said in 27. And then he said, forever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered. Because it's gonna be a lot of dead bodies. One thing about the Antichrist, he's gonna take down God. God removes the restrainer. God is gonna allow him to be in power for Bible prophecy. So he's gonna be in power. The restrainer that kept him from being in power now, to keep him from coming now, is gonna be removed. So he's going to be able to have his way. And the Bible says he's going to make war with the saints and he's going to overcome them. So that means we ain't no need to trying to battle with him. We could try to battle with him, but God is going to purposely allow us to lose the battle. Because he got to show how powerful he is, because we're going to raise up in 3 days. You know what I mean? Which 3 days? 3 years. So we're going to raise up. But they're not going to do nothing with those bodies. It's not like they're going to do a funeral for them, because the people that believe in Christ, they're going to be left. They ain't going to be trying to be, I ain't going to do no funeral so the Antichrist can catch me and try to force me to pay. So there ain't nobody going to be coming out trying to get their family members to see if they're going to do a funeral for them. Those bodies is going to be laid out everywhere, all on the streets. Because it's going to be a place of lawlessness. The Antichrist is he's a man of lawlessness. It's not going to be any laws. You could be able to basically do what you want as long as he approves it. You know what I mean? See, a lot of people don't understand what it takes to have an Antichrist. There ain't going to be no more laws. You know what I'm saying? So people going to be acting a fool because he broke that treaty. He broke that 7-year deal. He is the abomination of desolation. He's here to destroy. And then what's Satan here to do? Kill, steal, and destroy. The Antichrist is his son. So whoever being raised up to be the Antichrist, like I said, we got to keep our minds open and keep staying his word so we know what to expect. Because Jesus said, be watchful for my coming. You know what I mean? So it means you got to watch all the events that lead up to that, and understand and keep tabs on when that 7-year treaty is signed, so we can so we won't have to wait until that fool get in office. We can be out already prepared to live off the grid. So just understand that and read this chapter and really ask God to give you revelations of this. And like I said, to get a better understanding, Revelation 13 is where to read. A lot of people stay away from Revelation. A lot of people read Revelation and be like, oh, I read Revelation. You just can't read Revelation just say I read Revelation. You got to understand Revelation. Revelation is a very scary chapter. It's one of the reasons why a lot of people avoid it, even churches. But it's a lot to understand. It takes a lot, but it's parallel to a lot of the things that's going on. Like Matthew 24 is parallel to Revelations 13. You know what I mean? Revelation 6. All these things are parallel. So all these things connect. All these scriptures, even in the Old Testament, is in parallel with what's going on in this world. So, like I said, we'll get deeper into it. We'll start discussing it even more. And you have any questions, just write them down. And I'll see you guys next week. Love you all. Y'all be blessed. And I pray this bless your soul.